Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Cade, and today we are joined by a returning guest. That guest is my friend Max. Don't forget to check out his channel, by the way. I'll leave a link for that in the description. And for today's episode, we are going to be revisiting the Jurassic World movies. Hey Max, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Cade. I'm excited. I binged Jurassic Park towards the end of the last year, the Jurassic World series, because they all hit streaming simultaneously again, and that's an interesting franchise for sure.
Yeah, and apart from rewatching all the Jurassic World movies in prep for this discussion, I also did rewatch the original Jurassic Park very recently. And I know I don't have to tell you this because I know it's your favorite movie of all time, but I love how well that movie has aged. And I do consider it a timeless classic, and it probably is one of Spielberg's best movies. I mean, the effects, the acting, and the characters, the story, it all holds up incredibly well, I think.
I think, yeah, I mean, obviously, it took advantage of new technology and old technology at the same time because CGI was brand new. We're talking this movie came out 2 years after Terminator 2.
Yes.
So they really, really took advantage of computer graphics. And like some of the greatest scenes are the T-Rex roaring at the end of the movie, or even like the Gallimimus stampede is like still one of my favorite scenes to watch just because I'm like, oh my God, it's so impressive. But then they also do the practical like effects. Like the T-Rex was semi-practical, and then you had the sick Triceratops, and you had parts of the Raptors that were also practical. And then later on animated on top of that. And the original Jurassic Park, I think it follows the Christian storyline as best as possible. The Jurassic Park, the movie rights were sold before Christian finished the film. So obviously the movie and the book differ a lot in different ways, but they still in the end, reading the book and then going back and watching the movie, that's a pretty faithful adaptation to like an earlier vision of the book.
Yeah, and now getting into Jurassic World, let's go back to 2015. We have the original Jurassic World. Here's something I wanted to ask you first, Max. So, out of all the original Jurassic Park sequels, Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, and the sequels to this one, Fallen Kingdom, Dominion, and Rebirth, in your opinion, is this movie the best Jurassic sequel?
It is the best Jurassic sequel because we had such a break from the Jurassic franchise that I think it reignited a lot of interest. But also the Indominus Rex, like I always say, it's a really good movie monster. And I think that they took the idea of hybrids and made it believable, which was something they struggled with the rest of the franchise. But I liked the Indominus Rex, and I liked the scene where she like lets go of the camouflage and the soldiers get eaten and get crushed. That's like a great scene for that movie. And I think what's good about Jurassic World is it's a pretty decent monster movie.
Yeah, and one other thing that's great about it is that we finally get to see a park up and running. You know, we actually get to see guests interacting with all the dinosaurs, which is something we hadn't gotten in the franchise at that point. So it was cool to see that element brought to the screen.
I think totally. I think that was like the whole what made it refreshed was like, oh my God, they somehow made the park doable. It looks like they actually took security seriously last time. Like, how do they possibly ruin it this time? And the answer is money, right? They need more money and more reasons for people to go to the park, so they start creating hybrids. And the first one that they think they perfected is too perfect.
Yeah, and like you were saying, the Indominus Rex. So this movie introduces hybrid dinosaurs to the franchise, and at least in my opinion, not a bad idea for a storyline for this type of franchise. If this was reality, I can definitely see people wanting to find a way to use certain genetic splicing to create a new breed of dinosaur. And when it comes to the Indominus Rex, I do like how it has all these different abilities. It can camouflage itself, it can lower its body temperature, and it's also pretty intelligent, which makes sense considering how it was created with raptor DNA. And, you know, when it comes to the other dinosaurs that we've seen in the franchise at this point, most of them hunt their prey because they're predators, and that's what they do. They hunt for food. But with the Indominus Rex, like they say in the movie, it hunts for sport. And I think that that might show that this thing wasn't just born with the raptors' intelligence, it was also born with their sadism too. Because if you look back at the franchise, the raptors, I think, are probably the most sadistic dinosaurs. So I think it would make sense for the Indominus Rex to inherit that trait.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the best lines of the movie is it's hunting for sport that makes this creature more than just, oh, this isn't just like a scared animal. This is a malicious thinking beast, knowing full well it has power over us. And I think the interesting thing about the Indominus Rex and the idea of hybrids in this movie is it gets a lot of inspiration from like canceled Jurassic Park ideas. There was a whole toy line about hybrid dinosaurs that I think only had one series. And then there was some canceled ideas for either a Jurassic Park 4 or a Jurassic theme park ride about hybrid human dinosaur people. They never did that. But I think it's better this way. I think that they needed the hybrid dinosaur and the Indominus Rex. There's like a fan theory it might have human DNA in it because of how smart it is, and the fact that how many times does it psych people out? That's stuff that requires advanced thinking that not exactly animals are capable of unless they have like some sort of primate DNA or human DNA in them. And I think that's what makes the Indominus Rex so scary. And I remember seeing it in the theater being like, "Oh my God, this isn't just like a Jurassic Park movie where animals we can't beat the big animal. The big animal is too smart to be beat."
Yeah, but I will say the reason for why the Indominus Rex is created, there is something I do have kind of an issue with, and here's what I mean. So, the purpose for why this dinosaur hybrid was created is because somehow they needed a way to boost attendance at the park, which was apparently declining from what we hear in the movie. And these are my issues with that. So, basically, this means that people were basically getting tired of coming to this park to see dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I'm just going to repeat that. So people were getting tired of coming to see dinosaurs.
I think the movie doesn't set up the best job implying how long the park's been around. So I think you're just supposed to pull like Jurassic World's had at least a successful 5 years, and people are getting tired of it. So either it's really affordable to go to Jurassic World, or it's just people are just tired of seeing it advertised. But the later movies emphasize that people are growing up, like kids are born into a world where dinosaurs exist now again. But yeah, I understand. Like, how are you bored of the dinosaur theme park already? Because no way Jurassic World hasn't been around for a decade yet.
And here's what makes it less believable. If you take a look at the park throughout the whole runtime of the movie, this place is absolutely packed.
Yeah.
If maybe they just had one or two dozen people at the park, then maybe it would be a little bit more acceptable to me. But like I said, this place is absolutely mobbed throughout the whole runtime. You have all these people coming to see the dinosaurs, even though the whole idea is that not enough people were coming to see them in the first place. But I get it. We need a lot of people here because once the dinosaurs eventually break free, there needs to be a lot of people there to get eaten and get attacked. So all the dinosaurs have them to take. So that's my whole issue with the storyline. And I know you just have to accept it, just
Yeah.
suspend your disbelief in
It's a
that way.
movie. I guess the best thing you could think of is like diminishing returns and corporate greed. Like they're like, I don't want. I was last time we made billions. Now we're making a little less than that.
But now we need to get into the characters of this movie. Most notably, we have the two leads, Owen and Claire, played by Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. Max, overall, what are your thoughts on these two characters?
Um, I would say I don't like them very much. I think they're kind of forgettable. Their roles are less significant as the franchise moves forward.
I know, right? Why?
Yeah.
With Owen, I kind of like how he's a character who clearly cares a lot about dinosaurs, how he views them as living animals instead of just park attractions or whatnot. And I do like his whole relationship with the raptors and how he's trained them. That part's cool. Other than that, other than him just being a Navy guy, there isn't really just much there to work with. I guess that's kind of why you need Chris Pratt, because Chris Pratt, he's a very charismatic actor, so he brought a certain charm and likability to Owen, but otherwise, Owen's just not really that deep of a character, I don't think.
No.
And I feel the same way about Claire. I mean, Claire is kind of just the best way that I can describe her character is business lady in this movie.
There is the Flanderization in their characters. Chris Pratt's Owen Brady is the action hero with the Velociraptor. And like you just said, Bryce Dallas Howard is business lady who knows everything about everything and therefore knows how to navigate the park in heels, which is the funniest. I love that people call that out. But it's a Hollywood action movie. I don't really expect a lot of layers to characters. But the Jurassic World franchise is just any character's motivations are worn on their sleeves. There's no secret ulterior motives. Like he's the guy that likes the velociraptors and the dinosaurs matter. She's the businesswoman that needs the park to be financially successful and has maybe a little bit of second thoughts of the ethics of her park. There's not much past that.
Well, and actually, here's something I've heard brought up before. Max, in your opinion, is Claire the villain of this movie? Because here's something that made me really mad and what also made a lot of other people mad the first time they saw the movie. After the Indominus Rex escapes captivity, does Claire evacuate everyone from the park right away? Nope, she does not. She decides that they'll be able to capture it before it becomes a real threat to the people. I don't know. I guess she just forgot that this is an advanced, highly intelligent dinosaur that clearly has the capability to get past their security again.
It's Jurassic World has just a lot of plot holes to it in the sake of advancing the plot. And you're right. I think a part of Blair's attitude is that the product, Indominus Rex, has gotten out of control, gotten loose, but we have protocols in case this happens. So let's follow protocol. But the protocol doesn't account for the fact that the creature is so advanced that it already knows how to adapt to everything. And therefore, I think it implies a lot more about the Indominus Rex's intelligence. Did it somehow subvert or circumvent any protocols that would get it caught by already being like, oh, they're trying to figure out what to do if I escape? But that's not written to the movie. So it's not in the movie. Therefore, it didn't happen. Therefore, it just looks like a bad plot hole.
One scene in this movie that I just found absolutely hilarious is the scene where Owen and Claire are looking for her nephews, and there's one point where they're above the waterfall and she just shouts out their names. And the reason that I found this so funny is because you have the Indominus Rex on the loose right now, and it could possibly be somewhere near them at this point. And it also brought back memories of Amanda from Jurassic Park 3, who's possibly one of the most annoying characters in the entire franchise, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the wife, right?
Yeah, because when they got to the island, she's just shouting out her son's name the whole time, making as much noise as she possibly can. She even uses a megaphone at one point to shout out his name, which is quite possibly one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen in a movie in general.
I'm pretty sure minutes later, Alan Grant runs into a T-Rex in that same scene. So yeah, it was stupid. And a lot of people do point out the island full of dinosaurs, which, by the way, it's not like they're unaware that it's this dinosaur island. They are aware that Isla Sorna is, in fact, a site for Jurassic Park. Because they take Alan Grant there because they know dinosaurs are there. And yeah, her instinct, I get the panicking mother, I got a call for my son. And I think a part of that is also, it doesn't matter that it's the island of carnivorous dinosaurs. It's her son's out there and she's just trying to get it back. And you don't think. And I think instead of in the writing encouraging her silence, they just let her do it. And like, you think Alan Grant would be like, hey, carnivorous beasts could be in the jungle with us right now, and you're screaming.
But I also want to talk about the character Hoskins, played by Vincent D'Onofrio,
Yes.
because this character and his whole subplot is something that I've always been very confused by. And Max, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit before recording. His plan in this movie is to take the dinosaurs, specifically the raptors, and weaponize them to use them in the military.
Yes. He wants effectively the Jurassic War.
Not only does this just not really make sense, but it honestly feels as if Hoskins was only included in this movie because they just felt that they needed to have another greedy, detestable human antagonist.
Yes, I would say that every Jurassic World movie is going to have the detestable businessman or mercenary. Even Rebirth had one.
Yeah, and Max, help me understand something. Why exactly does the character Zara get such a violent death in this movie? I just think it's very random. I mean, we barely spend any time with this character. The only thing that we know about her is that she's Claire's assistant and she's British. And then out of nowhere, this character, who we don't even really know, gets one of, if not the most violent death in the entire movie.
Yeah, I would just say, well, she wanted it to be crazy, the actress. Like, it was like at the request, and I think it was just to really get the adrenaline pumping in the audience. Like, because before that, they start escaping. The pterodactyls are flying out of the enclosure. I think they take down like a helicopter. There's a quote my friend that I remember watching it with my friends on release week, and my friend could not keep a straight face when the guys in the watchtower go, "Well, that's the first." When the pterodactyls break out. What do you mean? I get you don't you okay. So the pterodactyls break out, and then I think they just really wanted to get the audience to grab your attention. I think it's like the Jurassic World equivalent of the bird that screeches in Citizen Kane. Like they're just trying to keep your attention, keep your eyes glued to the screen. So they murdered this poor woman in the most horrific fashion.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's something else about this movie and the other movies that I wanted to bring up. And you know what, Max? Oddly enough, this is something we brought up when we did our Terminator discussion and when we also did our discussion of the Blade trilogy. But there's one element of this movie and the other movies that I find really, really funny, and that is the product placement.
Oh yeah.
The most prominent one in this movie is probably just how many shots there are of just a Mercedes in general. But you've also got Nissan, you got your signature character who drinks Coca-Cola. You also got Starbucks. There's Margaritaville.
Yeah, I was gonna say with the man himself.
Believe it or not, there's even a moment in this movie where Claire says out loud, Verizon Wireless presents the Indominus Rex.
Oh, really? I forgot about the Verizon Wireless presents the Indominus Rex. So that means that they funded it, like canonically in the franchise.
Yep, why not, right?
Yeah,
But there is one thing that I've always really liked about this movie. When you have the final showdown, I actually really like how the Indominus Rex gets taken out.
that was good because I think it solidifies that it's not going to come back. I like that at the final showdown, the original T-Rex from the first movie is the one to lure it towards the Mosasaurus.
Good old Rexy.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, now that we finished talking about Jurassic World, now we are moving on to the next movie. Jumping ahead to 2018, we have Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Max, I don't really like Fallen Kingdom.
Fallen Kingdom sucks, and it is a 2 hour and 9 minute film. It does not feel like 2 hours. Some people, when you hear that, might think, oh, it's one of those movies that's so bad it feels unbearably long. No, it feels like 30 minutes because there's so much stuff that they spark notes their own movie. They go here, then they go there, and then they end the movie.
So in Fallen Kingdom, we have the main characters from the first movie coming back to rescue the dinosaurs. And what exactly are they rescuing the dinosaurs from? Well, turns out that the island which Jurassic World was built on now has an active volcano. Now, Max, you know that I'm a moron. I know that I'm a moron too, but I have two questions. Where the hell did this come from? And two, how exactly does that work?
Very good observation. Because if you only have watched the movies, you would not know that Jurassic Park gets all of its power from the thermal heat of the volcano on the island because it's never mentioned in the original trilogy. It's not mentioned in the first Jurassic World movie. The only time this gets canonically mentioned is in Jurassic World Evolution, the video game, or the original Michael Crichton novel, which they ask, how does this park run with so much power? And they briefly go, it's thermal energy from the volcano on Isla Nubla. Oh, okay. So you're just like, yeah, you get to Fallen Kingdom. And for me, I'm like, oh, the volcanoes. And they say, well, since, the park's not taking any of the heat from the thermal energy from the volcano, it's getting active again. And since it was so inactive for so long, all the sudden activity is making it erupt. And you're like, I sure, let's just go with that. It's a movie. I'm not here to nitpick realism anymore. But then I realized, wait a second, the volcano subplot is so confusing. If you're not like a book, if you didn't read the books and you're not involved with anything outside of the movies, because I knew there was a volcano, and then you just brought it up. I was like, oh yeah, they don't mention the volcano ever in the movies. But yeah, they run it. It runs on the park canonically runs on thermal energies from the volcano in Isla Nublar, and there's apparently a volcano. Like it's just like the islands have like some like a volcanic mountain range, and that's where they get all their power from. But since they shut it down, it's going to erupt again. And I remember being like, when that movie came out, I was like, there's a volcano. And then as I read the book, I'm like, oh right, it's from the book. The volcano's from the book. So they because they constantly borrow from the original Crichton novel in World stuff that Spielberg didn't cover because Crichton didn't really tell him, or Spielberg cut it for whatever reason, and then they redo it. They do it later in World. And that's one of the idea. That's one of the parts from the Crichton novel. I remember they're like, but it's also just like a brief, like Crichton just needs to explain the science of how everything works in his world. So it's maybe a page. It's not that in depth even in the book. They're just like, it's kind of thermal energy comes from the volcano. Oh, okay. That's it. That's like the whole conversation.
But apart from that, I didn't really like Owen and Claire in the first Jurassic World movie. I was very disappointed to see that this movie didn't really do them any better.
No, they are barely a character in the movie.
Because Claire, once again, comes off very dull and boring throughout the entire movie. And honestly, I think one of the few times where she actually shows the most emotion is earlier at the bar with Owen when she's just laughing about how their relationship ended. That, I think, is one of the few times where she actually has the most energy throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And Owen is here, is the best way I can put it.
Owen Owen, Chris Pratt has a 3 movie contract, and they were like, "Oh, Owen's got to sell action figures and Lego sets." Okay, but like, what about character wise? He gotta go find his pet raptor. Send him to go find the raptor. And then Blue doesn't recognize him like immediately. And you would think, I don't, I was just like, in my head, I'm like, okay, I get it. It's like an animal, like they're scent based. But if the raptors are so smart, how come Blue, like, and Blue's like the most intelligent of them? How come Blue's like a dummy for like 5 minutes? Is like, who are you? I'm gonna eat you. Oh, it's Chris Pratt. My mistake.
Yes, and you also have their new allies in this movie. You have Franklin and Zaya.
Yes.
You have Franklin, the tech guy, and Zaya is the dinosaur veterinarian. And Max, there's a lot of pointless or unnecessary things in this movie. And overall, that's how I feel about these two characters. Because I guess the idea was for Franklin and Zaya to just be the comic relief characters, I guess.
I thought they were gonna get one. I thought Franklin was gonna get munched by the Allosaurus. I thought that was the whole. Like I thought that was it when he was when he's trying to escape the Allosaurus, and they get like all the the lava on it. I thought like it was gonna pull him down, and no. Okay, so oh, this guy, this is a character now, I guess.
But not only are these two characters completely obnoxious, if you just took them out of the story, I honestly don't think anything would really change.
I can't. You're right. I can't remember a single beneficial thing they did other than I think Franklin distracts like one of the mercenaries towards the end of the movie.
And also, I guess Zaya kind of helps Blue get better after getting shot.
Oh, that is true. That's such a that part of the movie. I feel like they wrote Zaya in because they showed Blue getting like Blue has to get shot in order for Blue to not end the whole movie once they get to the bad guy base. Because Blue's like a strong dinosaur. She could probably kill everyone. So they shoot her. She's gonna die. And then they're like, wait a second. Chris Pratt has so many scenes that he like could not possibly like save Blue or we'll have to delete scenes. Well, Bryce Dallas Howard has to take care of the girl. And then they made Zaya.
But then, Max, you also have some of the other characters. In this movie, we meet the character Eli, who is without a doubt definitely not a bad guy in this movie. And then we also get to meet another character named Wheatley, who once again is without a doubt definitely not a bad guy in this movie. But you know what? There's actually a plot twist. Turns out these guys are actually bad guys in this movie.
Yeah. If there's a suit character in the Jurassic franchise, they're not making it to the end. And they're not trying to allow other people to make it to the end. They're selling something or buying something. And it's the same rehash every movie. I just don't. What does the board meetings look like in Hollywood for Jurassic World? Because they're like, kids want to see dinosaurs. Kids are growing up in a time where their movies aren't compelling and they're going, how is my favorite movie growing up? And you're like, oh, geez. Like, it's such a deterioration of the art because even as a kid, I watched Lost World and I was like, that was boring.
Yeah, and I just have to say the scene where Wheatley goes into the cage to get its teeth. Oh, hey, you know what? I'm gonna trank this hybrid dinosaur. Go inside here, inside this cage, take its teeth. There's no way it's gonna wake up. It's not like it's an advanced dinosaur or anything.
The scene after that is more infuriating when the rich people are in the elevator and then the Indoraptor pops it open and jumps in, and then they cut away. That could have been the most iconic scene in Jurassic World franchise of this beast, this wild beast going crazy in an elevator. Can you imagine? I know it's a movie for like young like teenagers and kids, so they have to like tone it back. But could you imagine if they were allowed to let loose how iconic that would be? Like body parts flying everywhere, the Indoraptor ripping people apart in this small, up this giant mansion. That would be crazy. But they cut away. And that's like one of the biggest problems of that in the world is when someone is gonna get ripped apart, they cut away from it. And even in the originals, even in Lost World, they did like cuts, but the cuts were more the implication was there. Like the guy who got dragged out of the cave, his blood streams down the waterfall. That's horrifying, right? Like they didn't need to show him getting ripped apart, but you saw the blood. Or the velociraptors in the field, you would see the tails swing about as they're eating the mercenaries. Or you'd see people get tugged on. Like there was ways to get around gore, but they're like it's so cowardly in this movie. They just cut away. They don't show you.
And by the way, I'm convinced at this point that Owen is some kind of superhuman or something because he's able to withstand such high temperature from the erupting volcano, you know, when it's oozing toward him on the ground or when he's just running away from the clouds of smoke that's consuming all the dinosaurs. Is Owen, I get that he's a Navy guy, but is he some kind of superhuman that we just don't know
Yeah,
about?
yeah, okay. You're totally right. I was saying this to my friends. I said, I don't want to be nitpicky because it's a Hollywood action film. Pyroclastic flow turns you into ash. It Pompeiis you. The moment he got into that cloud, he should have been gone. Those smoke clouds are unbelievably hot. And he comes into proximity with the lava. He should have suffered some actual that kills people. You can't get that close to lava without having some sort of injury. Like at least a burn, right? That's why people wear like protective clothing around that stuff. But the moment he got caught in that smoke cloud, he should have died. That's not how that stuff works. That's so hot that kills you like instantly.
And I also want to bring up the product placement again because you have a sequence in this movie where Claire is driving the truck with Owen and Franklin in the back. They're driving, they jump off the island, and then they land on the ship.
Yeah.
And my first question from that is, was nobody curious about the truck jumping onto their ship as they were taking off? They didn't think that maybe they should check to make sure that this was one of their own people driving it. And also, Claire decides that she needs to hide from the mercenaries now that she's on board. And Max, how does she do this? Well, she puts on a hat. I mean, fantastic. Only Sherlock Holmes could see through a disguise like this. She just puts on a hat, brought to us by none other than John Deere.
It was a deer hat.
And I absolutely love how terrible the mercenaries are at guarding the dinosaurs. Not only is it incredibly easy for the protagonist to just sneak around the ship and into the T-Rex cage without being caught, but there's even a point in the story where the characters actually fall asleep where they're trying to help Blue. I don't know. I guess that these guys just don't think the dinosaurs need to be watched at all times, which I don't know, just seems pretty careless to me, but whatever.
They have latches on those cages that are meant to hold like lions. Dinosaurs are way stronger than them. And the fact that they're like, oh yeah, but they're sedated. Okay, so they're sedated for a boat trip is a lot longer than like a plane ride. How much drugs were in one of those shots? So it's just like one of those things where like it's a movie, who cares? Move on from it. But it's just like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is frustratingly bad. There's so little lack of information about parts that should be crucial to the film that even the small things that shouldn't matter annoy you more because you're just like, this movie can't be bothered to tell you anything. And even if it's a movie, it should show you stuff. It doesn't want to show you anything. It just wants to be dinosaurs, Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, dinosaurs. And they're like, oh, and here's the dinosaur from the big bad dinosaur that's going to sell a million toys. Here it is for, I counted like maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah, and this movie also, for some reason, decides to throw in another dinosaur hybrid, but this time it's a hybrid of a hybrid, and that is the Indoraptor, as they call it, which is a hybrid of the DNA from the Indominus Rex and of Velociraptor. And I don't really see why this was necessary, because keep in mind, the Indominus Rex was already created from the DNA of a raptor.
I'll do you one better. So it was supposed to be like a compact Indominus Rex because they wanted to sell it to the militaries or private companies, a weaponized version. I'll do you one better. They should have removed all of the first half of the movie, started at the auction, and it should have what would have been a better Jurassic World movie that we'll never get is a horror movie where it breaks out and the whole movie is this monster stalking you through a mansion. And then it's like maybe 20 minutes, 45 minutes in the movie, and it's bad. It's just like, oh my God, this could have been so much better.
Just to add on what you were just saying, why don't we talk about Eli and Wheatley's plan in this movie? So their plan is to kidnap the dinosaurs from the island, bring them to the Lockwood Manor, even though it would probably be a lot better and safer to just bring them to one of the other islands, but that's just me. And their ultimate goal is to sell the dinosaurs at an auction.
For profit, yes.
I'm going to say that again in case you guys thought you misheard me. They want to sell the dinosaurs at an auction, and the people attending the auction are these wealthy.
The aristocratic. No, I think they were implied to be like wealthy elite.
I think one of them is a character named Anton, who I think they said was an arms dealer or something. And what exactly are they planning to do with these dinosaurs? Do they want dangerous pets to keep rats off their lawns or something? Do they want to use the dinosaurs as weapons? How do they plan to do that? How do they plan to control them? Is all of this really obvious, Max, and I'm just missing something?
I just assumed with InGen, or was it InGen? There was a biosynth from the first movie, how they tried to steal the DNA for medicine, or at least it's not applied in the first movie. Once again, this is stuff that is mentioned in the Michael Crichton novel. The corporate espionage was being committed against InGen, which is the DNA company that funds the Jurassic Park research to remake the dinosaurs. They're trying, biosynth was interested in stealing the dinosaur DNA to create cures for terminal illnesses, then they can then sell and corner the market on. So I assumed half the people there were probably, yeah, I want to make weapon-based dinosaurs. Like I want to breed them, sell raptors to armies around the world. Where some people might be looking at the herbivores and being like, they have immunities to certain things. If we prick them with needles, we can then corner the market in certain medicine. But does the movie tell you that or imply that at all? No, because this movie is written, this is like draft two.
Maybe it's just draft one for all we know.
Yeah, it's draft one. It feels like draft one. It's one of the worst movies in recent, probably one of the worst movies of the 2010s decade, I would say.
But now I want to bring up my least favorite thing about the movie, and I think it's one of your least favorite things too. So in this movie, we are introduced to a character named Macy. And at first, it seems that Macy is only the granddaughter of Benjamin Lockwood. Okay, fine. But as the plot unfolds, we discover that she's actually the genetic clone of Lockwood's deceased daughter. Okay, so you're telling me that there's now a whole new layer to this franchise because not only can dinosaurs be cloned, but now I guess people can be cloned too. And Max, here's a question I asked you before we even started recording this. Why is this franchise even about dinosaurs anymore?
Because Dr. Wu is still alive. That is it. He dies in the book. Therefore, the Michael Crichton novels end at Lost World. Dr. Wu is still alive. He still knows the science. Therefore, he is still a moneymaker. Therefore, he is still being employed by people. And guess what? He's involved in this movie and he's involved in the next one. And there's just stuff in that movie that, like, why does the Indoraptor try to rip the covers off of her bed? Why is it just if it like? Do you remember when a claw comes over to drag her out of the bed?
I have a better question, and I get she's just a kid, but why did she think that would stop the Indoraptor?
Yeah, it's not like she didn't know what it was at that point. She had encountered it several times before that point. It wasn't like she was in her room taking a little sleep siesta and then the Indoraptor broke out and then just happened to stumble across the room and she's like, there's a monster outside. No, she saw it. She got to the room later. Blue just comes out of nowhere and stomps on the Indoraptor and it dies. It falls, gets impaled on spikes, and they're like, oh, thank God it's dead. And you're like, this whole thing just started. This whole battle just started. It's over. And then the movie ends. And then Jeff Goldblum, he and Malcolm has the most incredible line at the end. He goes, it is no longer our world. Our world is over. It is the beginning of the Jurassic world. Wow. He just should have said, I was like, he's going to say something like, and our kingdom has fallen too. And he doesn't, but you're like, he should have. He just should have. You might as well.
Is this the worst movie in the franchise?
This is the worst movie in the franchise.
Interesting, because I guess we should move on to the next one. Jumping ahead to 2022, we have Jurassic World Dominion. And you know what, Max? This movie is often considered now to be the worst one in the franchise. So what makes this one better than Fallen Kingdom?
It's just a little bit more cohesive than Fallen Kingdom. And I'm saying, like, if you were to break it down in score wise, if you were going to buy just increments of five, it would be like if Fallen Kingdom's like a 1 star movie and Dominion is like a 1.5 star. If I was just to give you like a general score, it's just a little better. It's not leagues better. It's just I liked it a little bit better. I guess it's fine, but also it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because they bring up character relationships. You're just like, wait a second. I thought was Alan Grant married to Lauren Dern, or were they not married, or now they love each other? What happened there? It's just a whole bunch of crap.
Well, you know what? This movie introduces us to something that the franchise had never seen before, kind of similar to how Fallen Kingdom introduced human cloning. In this movie, we get something entirely different. This movie has, wait for it, Max, locusts.
Oh my God.
And you know what? This is actually perfect because when I was watching the original Jurassic Park, along with its 2 sequels and the first 2 Jurassic World movies, I always thought to myself, you know what? This is fun, but it'd be a lot cooler if it had locusts in it.
Yeah. You know what I want in my dinosaur movie? A biblical plague. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, and in this movie, we find out the locusts were created to dominate the global food market by
Yeah,
consuming certain crops that weren't grown by biosyn. And Max, I'll bring up what I said again. I'm gonna have to ask this question. Why is this franchise even about dinosaurs anymore? And you know what? You said it perfectly, because Dr. Wu's still alive.
because Doctor Wu's still alive. Literally, if you remove Wu from the equation, the ability to continue to make dinosaurs ends. And at that point, you just have to wait for them to die out, which you're like, well, they'll never die out, right? But the movie after explores the fact that they are indeed dying out. You have to remove him from the equation to end the franchise. because that's what happens in the book. We don't go past Lost World. I know realistically, Christian was like, I don't want to write any more dinosaur fiction novels because of how like annoying, like how just how complicated it is, and like I don't like to deal with the nerdy backlash or whatever. But technically, his novels end because there's no one to continue dinosaur research. Who's involved with the creation of the Dominus Rex? He's involved with the creation of the Indoraptor and the human cloning. He's involved with the Locust. Wu is alive, therefore the franchise can continue.
But let's get into the plot of this movie. A big part of the story is Owen and Claire's relationship with the character Macy. Macy gets kidnapped by Biosyn Genetics along with Blue's daughter Beta, which we'll get into. Basically, Owen and Claire's whole story revolves around them trying to get Macy back, obviously. And here's my whole issue with the storyline. We've barely seen Owen and Claire's relationship with Macy at this point. And it also doesn't help that I just really don't care about Macy's character either. To me, she just doesn't really have much character or personality, and she just comes off as more of a plot device than a genuine character.
Yeah, you're right, because they were trying to capitalize on the paranormal girl trope that was being set up by like franchises like Stranger Things. But Stranger Things builds that in. Jurassic World goes, we need this character so bad. And we couldn't get Millie Bobby Brown to do it. So we have this girl.
And regarding how they also have to rescue Blue's daughter Beta from Biosyn, that's another problem that I have because I think it really pushes Blue to the sidelines for the majority of the movie.
Yeah.
Say what you will about Blue in the other two movies, whatever. I think Blue had way more relevance in the first movie and in Fallen Kingdom than she does in this movie because we spend a little bit of time with her earlier in the film, but after Beta gets captured, Owen just promises her that he'll get her back, and then she disappears for the rest of the movie until the very end when they return Beta to her. Yeah, it just seems like they just didn't really know what to do with Blue in this movie.
That it's so bizarre because if you look at like any of the advertising to kids, Blue is like the face of Jurassic World. She's in the toys, she's in the Lego sets, she's in the video games, and she's in the little books. There's a whole book about Blue, and they're just like she's not in the movie. She doesn't even get like top billing. Like as a character in her own story, and you're like, what? I thought this was the mascot of the new series, and you're putting she's 15 minutes in the final movie. Yeah, it's like she's supposed to be the smartest animal currently living, and they do like, we're gonna leave her behind. What? She's like a beneficial member of the team, and you're like, oh, she doesn't really like me anymore, I guess. So I'm just not gonna like, I'm gonna just save her daughter for her, and then we can rebuild the relationship. You can't just sideline like the most famous, like the mascot. That's like Pokemon without Pikachu.
But we also need to talk about another one of my least favorite things about this movie. This movie brings back Sam Neill as Alan Grant, Laura Dern as Ellie Sattler, and Jeff Goldblum as Ian Malcolm again.
Hmm.
And this is where I have one of my biggest issues with Dominion as a whole. And this goes back to something that we actually talked about in our Terminator discussion. Remember how you said in Terminator 3 it looks like Arnold just didn't want to be there, and in Dark Fate, Linda Hamilton didn't look like she wanted to be there?
Yeah.
Well, that is how I feel about the legacy characters and their actors in this movie. Because if you look back at the original Jurassic Park, I mean, I don't have to tell you this, it's your favorite movie, but all these actors had so much life and energy, and it looked like they were invested in the movie that they were in. But you get to this movie, and while they're not necessarily doing a bad job, they're all just kind of there.
Yeah, they're doing like a Harrison Ford.
In Indiana Jones, yeah, Sam Neill is just there. Laura Dern is just there. Jeff Goldblum is just there. I just didn't see a lot of enthusiasm from the actors. It just seemed like they were just there for the fans, for fan service. And I do feel the same way about Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard because in the first Jurassic World, well, I didn't like their characters. They seemed way more engaging and like they were way more invested in what they were doing. But now in here, it just seems like they're here because it was in their contract.
Did you notice in every scene, if one character talked, they all had to speak? So if like Chris Pratt said something, or like if Owen said something, then Alan Grant said something, then Ian said something, and then Sattler said something. They set it up earlier to be like, ooh, okay, character conflict, like Ian's working for Biosynth as their chaotician. And then he's just like, actually, my boss sucks. I don't want to be here. Like, no, why isn't there some like I conflict in ideals here? What if he's like, okay, well, what Biosynth is doing is better than what InGen was doing. Like at least their little project is like these like locusts, They're not trying to recreate something that shouldn't have been brought back. Instead, he's like, no, I don't like what they're doing here either, but I need a paycheck or something. It's just like, okay, there's no thematic or like narrative depth anymore to this franchise.
And I'd also like to point out that this movie is basically just another rescue mission.
Yeah,
Jurassic Park 3 was a rescue mission because the characters had to save Amanda and Paul's son Ben. Fallen Kingdom was a rescue mission where they had to save the dinosaurs from the volcano. This movie is yet another rescue mission where they have to save Macy and Beta. But hey, this time at least it's a human and a dinosaur. So,
yeah. How many times, by the way, in that movie do they explain to you what a Giganotosaurus is and what a Quasilocotus is? They do the Quasilocotus back to back. I believe someone explains to you what a Quasilocotus is, and then the pilot character goes, "That's a Quasilocotus, late Cretaceous, should have stayed there." Amazing line, amazing work there. But you already told me what that was. And then Alan Grant and then Owen Grady both tell you what a Giganotosaurus is. And it was like almost like, hey, for you idiots in the back that weren't listening, here it is again. Like it's my same problem with Dark Fate. It feels like they forgot to revise the script.
and you know what? I've asked you this question before, Max, but this is definitely the movie in the original three Jurassic Worlds that relies the most on nostalgia. And I think I have to ask this question again. If you rely so much on nostalgia just to exist, then how is this supposed to stand on its own?
It doesn't. It can't. And the fact that Dominion, its main plot, takes a back seat to the nostalgia and the dinosaurs, by the way, the dinosaurs take a back seat to the nostalgia. The Giganotosaurus has less screen time than the Indoraptor. It's just more spaced up, chopped up. And not to mention the thing that a lot of people come to see Jurassic movies for, which is dinosaurs eating people, only one guy in the entirety of that movie gets eaten on screen. The two villains are killed in a cutaway. The main guy and the guy who owns the dinosaur fighting ring. They both get chomped and they cut away. The only person who gets eaten and you see him get eaten is a random guy on the Segway in the dinosaurs escaping through the city scene, and an Allosaurus eats a guy on a Segway, and you see that happen. And all I could think is, who in the editing room had beef with the Segway extra? Because that's what it looks like.
Well, and also, here's another thing, Max. How exactly did Owen and Kayla survive the plane crash? That was something that I always wondered ever since that happened. Even though I had that question the first time I saw this movie, I finally have an answer. Off screen.
Yeah,
Anytime that you want a character to survive something that they shouldn't, or reach something that they shouldn't be able to, or just do the unthinkable in general, it just needs to happen off screen. Kind of like that scene in Mortal Kombat Annihilation where they defeat Sindel off screen and they literally just explain to us how they beat her. But yeah, that's my answer for how you survive crashes like this off screen, or because the script said so.
yeah, because the script is ultimately the authority of the reality of this movie. And the script said that they don't die and they can't die because they're the main characters. And then without them, we don't have a movie. And to what I can say is you have a world full of dinosaurs and you can't somehow work the dinosaurs into softening the crash. By the way, a lot of the movies take places on islands. Like a plane hitting the water isn't as great as hitting a plane hitting the surface, but it would be more believable if they just hit the water and like skidded across it and then they washed up on shore. I would believe that. I would suspend my disbelief more. Hitting the side of an island and being like, we're okay. People die. And it's the same thing as the volcano. It's just like you keep putting him in situations where de facto a regular person would die. And you're like, well, you gotta suspend your disbelief because this is the dinosaur movie world. It's like, but it's not, but it's hard. It's hard now because they're so commonplace in the franchise, the dinosaurs, that anything that you want to also be unbelievable, it's just stupid.
Well, keep in mind, we suspect that Owen is a superhuman considering how much of the volcano he survived, so I guess that explains how he survived this, and
He's got that raptor DNA. He's a super soldier. That's why you can talk to him.
maybe Kayla has it too for all we know.
Yeah.
I just gotta say, during the final battle, I think it was very nice of the T-Rex to take a little branding break.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's about to fight the Giganotosaurus, it just literally walks by in the background and, hey, we get a little Jurassic Park brand. Ah, very nice.
Oh, yes, yes. Just make sure you know what you're, make sure we know. We want you to know that we know that you love the original movie. And we want you to know that you're a sucker for buying the ticket to this movie or paying for whatever streaming service and spending your time watching this because we got your money. But here's what you came for.
All right, guys. Well, now that we're done talking about Jurassic World Dominion, now we're jumping ahead to 2025. We have Jurassic World Rebirth. Max, what were your overall thoughts on Rebirth? Because it's slightly better than the last two Jurassic World movies. And here's one thing that I'm grateful for with this movie. At least it doesn't have any locusts and it doesn't have a dinosaur auction scene in it.
It's not terrible. I would say it's better than I'm gonna be bold. It's better than Lost World, but I don't like Lost World. But it's not better than the original world. It's not better than three, and it's definitely not better than the original, you know, but it's better than Lost World, Dominion, and Fallen Kingdom. And I think it's just because it is just an easy watch. The characters are at least like you can appreciate the father character almost in the same vein of Jurassic Park 3. I think whoever wrote that character, whoever like was in charge of the script was more fond of the Jurassic Park 3 characterization of characters. As far as the characters went, I was like, they're not the worst we've seen. It's just like it's there. It's a mediocre movie.
Here's a question that I have. So, the plot of this movie focuses on a team of mercenaries mainly being sent to this new island to recover dinosaur DNA. And why do they need to recover dinosaur DNA from these different breeds? Well, I'll tell you. It's because it turns out there's a way for dinosaur DNA to cure heart disease.
Yes. And also the activist guy wants to save dinosaurs.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole heart disease thing, at first, it was kind of a head scratcher for me, but at this point, after seeing the locusts and the human cloning, I guess I shouldn't really ask questions anymore.
Yeah, it's just like I said, they're just trying to corner the healthcare market, and they're like, if we have a cure to heart disease, then we'll be the only ones with a cure to heart disease. And apparently, that lies within several dinosaur species. How'd they figure that out?
I got to bring up the product placement again. Let's talk about possibly the worst product placement, not just in the franchise, but also in any movie that I've seen in general. So, this movie kicks off with a security malfunction at a facility on the island where they're keeping the Distortus Rex. And how exactly does this happen? Well, someone drops a Snickers wrapper and it causes the security failure after it gets caught in an airlock door. So, Max, let me see if I got this right. A Snickers wrapper is essentially why this movie happens.
Yes. But don't you forget, Cade, they spared no expense except on the ventilation system. Little expense is spared there and on competent security. Because in the movie, in that scene, there's a little thing on a computer that says, hey, door's breaking, and no one's looking at it. And by the way, that's the last time you see the T-Rex until the movie is wrapping up.
I know, right? Why?
Did you see how it grew and shrunk like a million times?
Yeah,
I think they couldn't figure out how to make it consistently one size without it like skyrocketing whatever budget they had.
I really didn't like the design.
No, it's bad. It's really disappointing that this comes from the director of one of my favorite movies ever, was Rogue One. This is a big miss from him.
There's also a baby dinosaur that the younger daughter names Dolores at some point in this movie and that she tries to take home. Do you think that this was an element that was only added to the story for the sole purpose of selling toys?
Yes, 100%. It's actually technically not a baby dinosaur. There was like a dinosaur breed that was that small. They just never like, but yeah, you're right. Dolores is to sell stuffed toys to kids. It's just 100% we need an action figure, but we also need a little cute thing that we can make plushie toys for.
Yeah, and regarding the new characters of this movie, when I realized that they were going to have a new cast of characters, I was actually kind of interested because after Dominion, I was pretty much done with Owen and Claire at that point.
The franchise was done with them 2 movies ago.
Yeah, but now you have a new group of characters, and two of them are played by Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali. I love Mahershala Ali; he's a great actor.
Yeah, he's the same way I feel about Ryan Reynolds in Blade 3. He does the best job he can possibly do with the script he is given in this movie.
Pretty much, and Mahershala Ali is probably the best actor in the movie.
He is definitely the best actor in the movie.
But I don't know about you. I just kind of felt the same way about everybody in this movie as I did most of the characters in the previous movies. To me, this was just another movie where the characters, well, most of them just felt really dull, and most of the actors didn't really look that enthused by the material. You know, honestly, I genuinely think the family had more life and energy than the mercenaries did. But at the same time, I think if you removed the family from the story, it probably wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, that was once again just you have to check. They needed for every Jurassic World movie and park movie needs mercenaries, families, and greedy businessmen. And then the movie can begin. The family was okay. I know a lot of people hated them. I didn't think they were that terrible. I just think that they were just severely underutilized. There were moments there was like one joke in the movie that I laughed at, and it was arguably from the boyfriend. And it was just like it was a cheesy joke. It just was like, where he was like, we should start trying to like get out of here. So let's go this way. And then like you hear like and like a bush shakes, and then he like looks, he goes, we should start going that way. And he points in a different direction. Like that was a little funny, but it was kind of because the actor delivered it in like a bad line in a funny way. His delivery was pretty good. But other than that, the terrible setup of all these mercenaries, and you're supposed to feel something when like they all get start getting picked off. I didn't care. Like a lot of people were like, I remember people talking about like how like shocking it was that girl gets nabbed by the Spinosaurus. I didn't care.
Let's talk about possibly one of my least favorite scenes in the movie, and that is the scene where they get the inflatable raft while trying to evade the T-Rex. That's our first scene with a T-Rex in the movie.
I kind of liked Rebirths, the T-Rex, like it turning over and it's sleeping. You're like, oh shit. It's not a bad one in my opinion. The part that's a little funny is she inflates the raft and goes plap and it's gone.
Yeah. Or even stupider, they get in the raft, the T-Rex starts chasing them, and they go, paddle, keep paddling. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to out paddle this thing.
Yeah, that all I can think is like that stream must have had a really fast current to out paddle it. Keep paddling. I thought I was like, oh gosh, they're killing a kid right now. They don't, obviously can't, but it's like the T-Rex, that scene had so much tension, and I thought, the boyfriend's getting eaten. No one gets eaten in that scene. All the tension that anybody in the family is going to get eaten is gone.
Yeah. This movie also decides to throw in a little potential romance subplot between Zora and Dr. Henry Loomis, and it doesn't really need to. I mean, not every movie needs to have some kind of romance subplot between characters,
No,
especially characters that I don't really care about.
I don't know what it is with the Jurassic movies needing romance. It should be a quite romanceless universe because it's built on the ethics of science. Not saying that science isn't full of isn't there isn't romance in science. I'm just saying I don't care. I don't watch Jurassic Park for like I can't wait to see the romance. There was no romance in the original movie. There was like a familial bond. And then maybe Sadler and Grant had a thing, but it was like you could tell they were close, but they weren't romantic in it.
But another thing that this movie fails on is the recreation of the iconic Brachiosaurus reveal from the original Jurassic Park. It tries to recreate that reveal, the scene where they find them all with the music and everything. To me, it just kind of fell flat. It just didn't recapture the magic from the original.
Yeah, so what they encounter there is the Dreadnoughtosaurus, which is actually a more recent discovery. They're like really big arthropods. They're massive, and you can tell that they spent maybe, oh, how long is that scene? Maybe 2 minutes. Once again, they're animating for some reason 3 or 4 of them on screen at once. And you're like, guys, it's cool. Thanks for the nod. You're actually ruining the mystique of the movie with this. So Rebirth goes on. They go and they find the Quasilocotus nest. And that has probably the best scene in the movie for me, which is that they're pulling the mercenary up and they pull up the Quasilocotus because it's got him. And you're like, whoa, that's a great subverting your expectations. The doctor falls and you're like, oh God, they actually killed that guy. No, he survived. I don't know if you know this, Kate. Hitting the water from that height does not save. You would die.
I believe you.
So we get to the end of the movie because the rest of it's kind of blurred till the end. And then there are all the people who have died were the mercenaries. You would think that maybe the first guy that got ripped off the boat by the Spinosaurus, I thought like maybe they're going to pull a Billy and he'd like come back. But no, he's gone. Okay, so they just got rid of a bunch of people for the sake of checking off the box that people get eaten. Cool. People come to see the movies to see people get eaten. It was more impactful in the original movie because we spent time with those characters. Like Muldoon getting ripped apart by the velociraptors was shocking because not only was he viciously mauled by the creatures he cared for, we spent time with Muldoon. Even Sam Jackson's character we spend at least 5 minutes with before he's dead, you know? So you're like, oh God. And he dies in a more shocking way because you just see his arm. But you get to the end of the movie, they're in the product placement zone where you see like they're hiding in the Jurassic Park gas station.
I told you the product placement in these movies is hilarious, Max.
Yeah, I remember just being like, there's the product placement that's like they're hiding amongst Doritos and all these other snack brands. And then the movie goes, oh, right, the D-Rex. And then they're like, oh, right, the mutant dinosaur that we showed earlier that ate the velociraptor that was going to eat the boyfriend while he was peeing. That thing has to come back too. So 2 of those show up. They need their 20 minutes on screen so we could sell their toys and kids will remember them. And then the D-Rex comes and the D-Rex eats the helicopter. Then it can't keep up with anyone. Somehow like loses all of its reach, appears from a smoke cloud that's smaller than it, So is it crouching down? Is it doing it for dramatic effect? Maybe that big lump in its head is its brain. Maybe it's huge. And then Mahershala Ali sacrifices himself, but not really.
No, like what was the point of that?
And then they don't even the suit gets eaten, which is by the far the longest a suit has survived the movie, I think. Just barely. But you know what? This was the classic, all the good guys survive and all the bad guys are dead, except for the morally questionable criminals, like the mercenary who we don't really know where they lied ethically, but they could get eaten because they were different. They didn't even solve the D-Rex. They just let it be. It's still there. You would think maybe it's got a shorter lifespan because it's a mutant monstrosity, but it survived 18 years because that's how long until the movie is between its escape and its reappearance.
Or maybe they're just saving it for the next movie for all we know.
Yeah, but all I can say is that I have talked to people who watched that movie before me and then watched it after, and then I watched it later. The D-Rex is the most widely unpopular new dinosaur or monster of the franchise. It has terrible reception. I haven't met a single person who likes the D-Rex that isn't. I think the only people who like the D-Rex are like kids. And I guess that's where they're, but I even as a, if I was a kid, I think I would be like, ew, I don't like that. And I wonder where it stands with kids because allegedly they made a D-Rex toy that sold decently well, but like it's a toy, like parents are going to buy their kids dinosaur toys. In my head, I just remember looking at the D-Rex and being like, I don't like it. It's a gorilla thing, but they also were like, it's supposed to be a gorilla and then an alien from Aliens. Like they literally, like Gareth Edwards was like, yeah, I wanted to be kind of look like an alien.
Which honestly, Max, I wouldn't be shocked if they brought in aliens in the future and just mixed those with dinosaurs.
Yeah, like like a Venom symbiote. But yeah, I just think that like the next step is this was not the soft reboot we were looking for. And guess what? They're gonna make another one because this one still did well in the box office. But I would think that they need a lot of these franchises that kids grew up with. They're still making for kids, but I don't know how much appeal it's gonna have mainstream. And my opinion is that they should just let someone make a rated R Jurassic movie and just let them just because I just think visually it has so much potential. And the stuff that holds it back is the fact that they make it for younger audiences and they have to cut away from things.
Yeah, because at this point, as much as I love the original Jurassic Park, and while the sequels to it are okay, and the Jurassic World movies, I'm just not a fan of overall, at this point, I'm done with Jurassic World movies. I have no interest in them anymore.
I think I don't see a world they can't it's been decades and they can't get past their it's like they're handed like a rubric like a syllabus when they make Jurassic Park movie. New dinosaur, science guy, science lady, you have to have mercenaries, a suit, and then kids and a dad or a mom or both. Or grandpa. But here's the thing. The Jurassic franchise is here to stay until they officially kill Dr. Wu.
Yeah. Well, guys, that has been our discussion of the Jurassic World movies. Max, thank you so much for being here. It was great talking with you.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, guys, thanks again for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you all again very soon.